Welcome to this edition of Silver Sneakers Boom Muscle. I've not posted for a couple weeks because I was experiencing some chest pain with exercise. And at 70 years old, with a history of somewhat elevated cholesterol, a high coronary calcium score, and being overweight, thought it was most prudent to get an exercise stress test before I did any hard exertion. Well, I had that done about a week ago and got up to 91% of my predicted maximal heart rate with no changes in my electrocardiogram, normal blood pressure response, and no symptoms. So this chest pain I've been experiencing, we could say, is non-cardiac. Don't really know the etiology. Maybe it's musculoskeletal overuse, some arthritis, I have asthma, maybe a little bit of something like that. So I'm back to exercising, and I wanted to demonstrate one of the problems with resistance or weightlifting exercise. When you lift a weight, you'll find that the only weight or the maximum weight you can lift is dependent on your weakest strength in your range of motion. I'm going to demonstrate with a shoulder press, one arm with dumbbell. If you've been following me, you know that I've suffered bilateral rotator cuff tears that are at this point not correctable other than with a shoulder replacement. So I've been trying to strengthen the muscles that are intact as best as I can. So I have a 15-pound dumbbell here, and my right side is the weakest, and I can lift that only in this upper range of motion. If I try and go lower, I can't lift it. So let me go to a lighter weight. Here's 12 pounds. I have maybe a somewhat greater range of motion, but still only about half of my full shoulder. 6 pound. Pretty much struggling in the initiation of this. And then 5 pounds. So down by my full range of motion. No real problem with it. So if I do shoulder presses with 5 pounds, I'm strengthening really at this initiation, but not really doing much from at least the second half of that range of motion. So one way to improve that is to add a band. Now a band, when it's not under tension, has no increased weight, but as you stretch it, it gets progressively harder. So if I add a band to my weight, now you see, as I'm stretching the band, even with a 5-pound dumbbell, it's challenging my muscles in that upper range of motion. Another way to increase strength in all the range of motion is to do isometric exercises at variable ranges. Another way to incorporate this concept of doing a partial range of motion with a maximum weight is to use something like a Smith machine. So I'll demonstrate this. Now I have these set so that if I can't lift the bar, it's not quite pressing on my chest. down and do some repetitions. This is more like end range of motion. And we can replace those weights with a lighter weight to work on the lower range of motion. You don't have to go to full extension because, again, it's a weight I can easily carry at that full range when I'm working on my closer to the chest, my initiation range. So I've got it loaded somewhat lighter. See the same concept in people doing push-ups, sometimes with a reduced range of motion, just as partial bend in their arms as opposed to full extension. There's benefits to both doing partial range of motion and the full range of motion. You can also incorporate this technique with machines. I like to use a band on this chest press machine, but change my position so it becomes a shoulder press. So I loop the band around the lower attachment, and then the handles to an upper attachment. And with this same concept, adds resistance in the upper range of motion, less in the lower range. Now I have it set up on the other side as well. Moving on with this edition of Silver Sneakers Boom Muscle, we're going to move into some curl exercises. You'll find that if you change the position of your hands when doing a curl, you'll exercise different muscles. So to exercise more the outside of the arm, I like to do curls with a bar, putting my hands farther than shoulder width apart, and keeping the elbows tight against the body. Do these, which are exercising the outer portion of the arms. And to exercise the inner part of the arms, I like to use what they call an easy curl bar. These ones are set up already, but sometimes you'll find them where you can add weights to the outside. This version is pretty easy on the wrists. I like to bring the weight up very quickly and lower slowly. Another place I like to incorporate bands are on this assisted pull-up machine. A couple bands coming down around the knee pad. Then I set the weight in the stack pretty close to 0. This helps me overcome resistance at the low end. It requires more of my muscle to finish off the pull-up. One way to incorporate bands into an action interval is to do a banded kettlebell swing. So I got my kettlebell, I bring the band through the handle and loop it over. And I'm going to set this up on the ground. And I can step on the band with my feet and then go ahead and do my kettlebell swing interval. The resistance becomes heavier as the kettlebell swings away from your body. Since I had to take some time off for my chest pain and stress test, I'm going to end my workout at this point. You can always build on these exercises, and in my subsequent next week, I'll start to increase the duration and intensity of these workouts. Hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.